Welcome everyone to the game between Harikrishna and Gukesh at the Menorca Masters 2026. Harikrishna enters in to the playing venue. The Super GM is currently on 1.5 points out of 3. He did lose to Nihal Sarin but then struck back with a victory over Richard Rapport, and then he drew his third round game against Ruslan Ponomariov. And this is the fourth round clash. Day 3 at the Menorca Masters. Day 1 saw 1 round, day 2 saw 2 rounds, and now it's day 3. Harikrishna takes on Gukesh, the one who actually with whom he worked for the World Championship match. Hari was part of Gukesh's team as a second, and now they are facing off against each other at this very interesting tournament. And Gukesh enters in. Day 1 was a draw for Gukesh against Dominguez. On day 2, he drew his game against Ponomariov and then lost a very difficult game to Nihal, where he was completely outplayed and dominated. And now Gukesh comes in with a score of 1 out of 3, and he'll be trying to get a few wins to get himself going in the tournament. The players are ready. The time control is 30 minutes plus 10 seconds increment. Menorca has been a happy hunting ground for Gukesh. He won the Open in 22 and 23. Let's see if he manages to keep up that momentum here. And a handshake, off we go. Always interesting to see how Gukesh will play with him trying to regain his form as the world champion. He plays pawn to c4, opens with the English opening, and Harikrishna goes pawn to e6. The knight comes out to c3, and we have pawn to d5. The Queen's Gambit has become so much more popular these days than ever before. Queen's Gambit declined, especially knight to f6, and Gukesh goes for cd. The exchange variation ed, and now bishop g5 makes a lot of sense. He plays his bishop out to g5, pinning the knight, and of course one of the threats is to take and win the pawn on d5. So Hari thinking here, he has few ways to play. Bishop e7, c6, he goes bishop to e7. This is a very well-known standard way to play e3. Now remember, you want to put your bishop on d3. Black cannot capture it right now because I can take on f6 and go queen b3 with a double attack. So castles has been played. Now Gukesh brings his bishop to d3. Let's see how Harikrishna meets this. He goes rook e8. And now for white, queen c2 is one option to keep the development of the knight on g1 flexible. He goes h3, not even determining where the queen should be. Knight can go to f3, knight can go to e2, pawn to c6 played. And Gukesh goes queen c2. This is where the queen belongs, putting pressure here, threatening bishop f6 and bishop h7. Knight comes to d7 to reinforce its brother on f6. Now knight to f3. Want to get in the knight to e5 at some point. The knight goes to f8. Now an important moment. Will Gukesh go short castles or long castles? Long castle is an aggressive move with g4 ideas. He goes short castles. He's like, let's not do anything too rash. Let's keep it simple. Knight on f8 is generally a very good defender of the h7 pawn and the king in general. Knight h5 offering trade of the bishops. Gukesh takes it. Bishop takes e7. And now after queen e7, there are a couple of ideas that are there. One is to play for the central break with e4. The other is to play b4, b5 called the minority attack. Gukesh goes rook e1, and he's keeping an eye on the e4 square. Bishop e6. And let's see how he continues here. I mean, a natural logical move is rook b1. He goes knight to a4. Also a nice move. Trying to get to c5. I'm actually very interested because I myself am a Queen's Gambit player. So getting to learn a lot from this. Rook a d8 played. And now sometimes the knight goes to c5 because it keeps pressurizing the b7 pawn, and whenever black goes b6, by the way, b4 played. Ooh, if I take queen b4, knight c5 with the idea of rook b1 is such a nice move. Such a nice idea by Gukesh to trap the queen almost. So a6, and he didn't have to prepare for rook b1. That's to play b4. He played it directly. Now the knight jumps into c5. Harikrishna's position starts to get a bit worrisome here. And Gukesh also keeping a solid edge on the time, 25 minutes. Bishop goes back to c8. So Hari says, well, the bishop will continue to defend my b7 pawn. a4 played to maybe play b5 at the right moment. g6. And g6 is just maybe planning to go knight g7 and knight e6. b5. Gukesh is direct. He's not really worried about trades. Takes here. If b6, by the way, then knight to a6, and the c6 pawn is very weak. So Hari goes queen f6 now. Okay, some threats here of an attack. Bishop h3, gh3, queen f3. You have to be careful. First Gukesh takes on c6. I believe b takes c6 is the most logical move. But he takes with the queen. I guess to b takes c6 he wouldn't have liked knight e5, and white is better. So queen c6 and now queen b2. Just moving the queen away. White has a thoroughly dominating position. Very good pawn structure. One island, while black has 3 islands of pawns. Weaknesses all around. Rook c1 putting pressure on the queen. b6, queen d6, rook a3, and b6 played now. Pushing the knight away. The knight goes back to a4, attacking the pawn. Rook a7. And now the knight is under pressure. He goes rook a1, attacking now the pawn on b6 because a3 is defended. Knight goes to d7. And while white's position is really nice, Hari is tenacious. By the way, Gukesh is planning to go to b5. So the rooks will get traded. I think even trading the queens here could be possible, but Gukesh just takes with the rook. Keeps the queens on the board. And now bishop to b7. Knight to b5. Attacking the queen. And the queen goes back to b8. The breaking through part is always a bit complicated. And queen comes up to b4. The queen can enter into e7. The knight can at some point go to e5 or g5. Knight goes to f6. And now queen e7 played by Gukesh. Okay, you have to kick the queen away, I believe. Rook e8 seems like a normal and natural move. And now Gukesh brings his queen to d6, offering a trade of queens. Once the queens are traded, the rook can enter in on a7. Rook c8. There's no back rank issues. The king can always pop out on h2. Rook a7 played. Step by step, Gukesh is dominating the game. And Harikrishna, well, one can say that he hasn't really gotten a chance to create even a threat in this game. Bishop c6, queen takes queen. Gukesh also having 5 minutes on the clock, Hari 2.5. You can take with the rook or the knight. Rook takes. And now rook, knight to d6. The knight jumps in. Do you want to start pushing the pawn b5? Is that something you like? But then rook c7 attacks here. If you try to defend here, maybe knight c8, rook a6, knight e7, and you drop the bishop. So somehow this knight is really tricky. b5. Oh, he plays it. Rook c7. He plays b5 directly, and now rook c7 could be a very good move for Gukesh. Finds it. Rook to c7. The bishop is hanging. And I think Hari's seen it that if rook b6, there is knight c8, knight e7. So he can't do that. And if he plays b4, he just loses the bishop. So the bishop goes back, and bishop to b5. Takes the pawn, attacks the knight on d7. Rook b6 played to attack the knight here, so that if it moves, you lose the piece on b5. Takes. And now rook c8 check, and you can pick up a8, but bishop b5 is just very classy. Rook goes back to b6. And bishop d3 played. He brings in the bishop, but now the knight can jump in. It's incredible how in this game each and every piece of white has played so well. Like insanely well. g4. Now the king also comes in. I would, say that this is a model game for Queen's Gambit declined players from white side for this Carlsbad structure. Minority attack and so on. h4. Rook b8. Hari is just waiting, and Gukesh is expanding, and now this little move king g2, always very helpful to get your king off the last rank so that there are no checks. And Hari is like, oh, I can resign here, but he still continues. He powers on rook d8. And now g5. No, he waits. Rook b7. g5 is in the air somewhere. King f8. And now Gukesh spots the tactic. Bishop b5. And if you take here, then rook takes f7 and you lose f6. Harikrishna there shaking his head. He plays pawn to g5. Maybe some tricks here. For example, takes, king takes. If you take with the rook, maybe there is knight g4. But it's not like Gukesh takes on f7 with the knight itself and attacks the rook here on d8. The rook goes to a8. Harikrishna is hoping for rook a2 and knight e4 to create some threats here. Gukesh gives a check. King has to go to d8. Rook f7. And yes, he's pushed the knight back. Takes. Rook g7 with the threat, or not only on g5 pawn but rook g8 and winning the a8 rook. He plays rook a2. And now chops off the pawn. Rook takes. King e7 attacks the knight. Gukesh even takes another pawn. is very sharp tactically here, because king e6 will attack the rook and the knight both. But if you see this rook, you simply go knight e4 takes knight c3 check with a fork, and your 4 extra pawns up. So king e6 and now knight to e4 should do the trick. Well, e4 is also not a bad move actually, just simply defending the rook. But knight e4 is even better, and 4 pawns up, Gukesh. What a game this has been. Somewhere you can see that Gukesh is getting back into his groove. He's getting into some sort of a form here, and hopefully this will be the start of his comeback. Harikrishna resigns, his first win of the Menorca Masters here for Gukesh, and he moves to 2 points out of 4 at 50% score, and he'll be looking to do well in the remaining rounds. It's actually a 10 round event with each player playing the other twice, just like the candidates tournament. And for Harikrishna, well, he has to forget this game. It was not particularly a great one. He didn't fight well. But I think for all the people out there who want to understand what the Carlsbad structure is, do check this game carefully. Carlsbad structure was already created here when this structure came into being. You can see here black has this pawns and the minority attack, and all of these ideas were shown very well in this encounter. The organizer of the tournament there just making Gukesh feel positive and good there. We'll be back with more games from the Menorca Masters. Hope you enjoyed this one.